The papers came in a plain manila envelope. No ceremony, no speeches, just a signature at the bottom, decommissioned. Valor was no longer listed as military property. No longer a hero. No longer anything. They erased his name from the database, shut down his file, moved on. But he didn't. Somewhere beyond the noise of forgotten parades, beyond the empty medals and dusty plaques, Valor remembered. And so did the man who had once knelt beside him in a war zone, hand resting on his collar, whispering, "I'll never leave you behind." His name was Jack Morin, a former master sergeant, now just another ghost moving through civilian life. Jack never got the call that Valor had been decommissioned. He found out months later, when he saw a photograph of his partner chained to a shelter gate. Unclaimed, unwanted, unforgiven. Jack dropped everything, left the small cabin he called home, and started driving. Because promises made under gunfire aren't forgotten so easily. The road stretched endlessly beneath the wheels. The old pickup rattled with every bump. But Jack didn't slow down. He hadn't spoken a word in hours. The only sound was the rumble of the engine, and the quiet, steady beat of a heart that refused to forget. He clutched the steering wheel tighter with every passing mile. A photograph sat on the dashboard. A younger Jack in uniform, kneeling beside Valor after a mission in the desert. Jack whispered to it once, "Hold on, buddy, I'm coming." The shelter was 2 states away. He didn't care. For Valor, he'd drive through hell itself. The shelter smelled of bleach and sorrow, rows of cages, broken spirits behind rusted bars, forgotten names. And there at the far end, a dark figure sat quietly, head lowered, body still. Valor, his once proud posture slumped, eyes dull but not empty, still waiting. Jack approached slowly, hands trembling. Valor didn't bark, didn't growl. He just lifted his head, and for the first time in months, his tail gave one slow, uncertain wag. Jack fell to his knees at the cage door. "I'm sorry, Valor," he whispered, voice breaking. "You waited, you kept waiting." A hand reached through the bars. Valor pressed his head against it without hesitation. They had erased him from the system, but they hadn't erased him from Valor's heart. The clerk barely looked up. "Adopting the mutt?" she muttered, sliding forms across the desk. Jack didn't answer. He signed, form after form, box after box. Owner, John Morin. Name, Valor. When he handed the papers back, the woman raised an eyebrow. "You know, most folks don't bother with the old ones." Jack met her gaze. "That's because they don't know what it means to be owed everything." Valor limped beside him as they left, chains rattling once, then falling silent. Jack carried them both out the door, man and dog, both heavier than when they came in. Home wasn't much. A single-story cabin with creaky floors and a fireplace that only worked if you begged it. But it was safe. Jack spread out an old army blanket in front of the fire. Valor sniffed at it once, then collapsed in a tired heap. Jack watched from the kitchen. This wasn't a rescue. It was redemption. Both of them had been abandoned by the system. Both had learned to survive without applause. Jack sat down on the floor, leaning against the wall. "You don't owe me anything, Valor," he whispered. "You already gave me your life." Valor thumped his tail once, and for the first time in a long time, Jack closed his eyes and breathed. That night, Jack woke to the sound of Valor whimpering. In his sleep, the dog's paws twitched. His body trembled, trapped somewhere deep in memories that wouldn't let go. Jack crawled from the bed, dropping to the floor beside him. He didn't speak, didn't shake him awake. He simply placed a hand gently over Valor's side. Steady, warm, present. Slowly the tremors faded. Valor let out a long, broken sigh, and leaned his head against Jack's knee. Neither man nor dog spoke of the ghost that night. They just survived them, together. Weeks passed. Neighbors whispered about the old soldier and his broken dog. Some looked away. Some offered pity. Jack didn't care. One afternoon, a sheriff's deputy pulled up to the cabin, clipboard in hand, sunglasses low on his nose. "Dog's not registered anymore," he said. "Technically, he's abandoned military property." Jack said nothing. The deputy tapped his badge. "If you can't show transfer papers, we'll have to take him." Jack stared at him, voice even. "Try it." For a long, heavy moment, Valor stood silently beside Jack. Staring the deputy down, the man shifted uncomfortably, turned, left. Jack closed the door and leaned against it, breathing hard. Valor sat beside him, silent and unmoving. They weren't just forgotten. They were disposable, and Jack would die before letting them take Valor again. One rainy evening, Jack found himself digging through old army boxes. Medals, photos, crumbled certificates, and at the bottom, a letter. Unopened, yellowed with age, it was addressed to him from the base commander. Shaking hands tore it open. Inside, only a few lines, effective immediately. K9078 is retired. Assigned to John Morin. Thank you for your service. Signed, stamped, forgotten. He had been Valor's owner all along, by law, by blood, by bond. They just never told him. Jack laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. He crumpled the letter and threw it into the fireplace. He didn't need their permission. He never did. Trouble came one cold morning. A government van parked at the end of the gravel road. Two men in suits approached the cabin. "We're here for the animal," they said. Jack stood in the doorway. No gun, no threats. Only Valor beside him, older, slower, but eyes burning bright. Jack stepped aside. "You want him?" he said quietly. "Come take him." The men hesitated. Valor growled low, the kind of sound that spoke of battlefields and buried promises. They retreated without a word. Jack closed the door behind them, locked it once, twice. Then he dropped to his knees, buried his face in Valor's fur, and whispered, "You stayed for me. Now I'll stay for you." Seasons changed. The world forgot them. But inside the little cabin, Valor slept by the fire. Jack sat in his old chair, a book in hand. No more missions. No more orders. Just silent companionship. Every night before sleep, Jack would reach out, let his fingers trail across Valor's head. A touch so soft it could barely be felt. And every night, Valor would thump his tail once, still listening, still loyal. They had erased his name, filed him away like a broken tool. But they had never understood. You can erase a name, but you can't erase love. Not from a heart that still beats. Not from a bond built on survival. Not from a soldier and his dog, who stayed long after the world moved on. Together. Until the very last breath.